Welcome to Only Ghosts in the Building. This is your host, Emily Claire.
And Karen Lynn. And we have
Colleen Krautheim.
And Kelsey Hendrick.
Yay! Yay, we're so excited that you're here. It's been such an interesting journey with all of us because we met at Fort Mifflin.
Yes.
Totally randomly. Colleen was wearing a Jim Harold shirt, and I was like, Jim Harold! Ah, yes! So that kind of made us friends, and it's been awesome.
We quite literally walked into each other.
Yes, yes, yes.
That was the beginning of June. That was June 8th when we did the tour, because we were supposed to go in March, and it got postponed because of the weather.
Yeah.
So we went, the next one they rescheduled was June 8th.
It was fate.
Yeah,
yes.
Because you weren't rescheduled, right?
No, we were not.
So our two groups, if we had not had the flooding, we wouldn't have ever met you. I mean, we might have eventually, but because we were all at Paracon too.
Yes.
It's just been synchronicity on synchronicity.
Yes. Meant to be.
Yeah.
So it was nice because we had a nice group that we met there.
Yeah.
Ron and April were there, and you guys.
They were also
Yes,
at Penhurst at the Paracon too.
So it was sort of a nice group. It was a small group. We all had the same energy, and I think it made it much more interesting to have people that have the interest in going to these from a paranormal standpoint, just not it's a ghost tour, let's go see what's going
spooky.
on. We all wanted to have experiences and knew how to do it. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and I think we each have our own kind of vibe in when we go, but it all meshes together. Awesome. So, all right.
So I'd like to find out a little bit about you ladies. Do you want to go first, Colleen?
Sure. So I guess I've always been interested in the paranormal.
Always, since
always fascinated me. Yes. Up until, it's a funny story. My daughter, when she was in 10th grade, invited friends over to do a class project. And one of the girls was watching Ghost Adventures and left it on. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I can check this out. So I started watching every show I could. And then Project Fear came out. Fell in love, or actually Destination Fear. Fell in love, Dakota, because I saw him on Ghost Adventures. And then about 5 years ago, I started getting a lot of outside things happening to me, like numbers, triple digits everywhere. And every day I would see them on the clock, on a license plate, could be on a receipt. It just fascinated me. So I called up my niece in Florida. She's very spiritual. And she said, you talked about, Emily, the Great Awakening. She's like, you woke. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So she sent me the Sacred Scribes. And I keep them on my phone. And I see the triple digits.
So what are the Sacred Scribes?
It just tells you what each of the numbers mean. And I know you mentioned a little while ago seeing a number and 11. So you can actually look up, let's say it's 811, 711, and it'll tell you what your spirit guides, your angels are trying to tell you. So it just fascinates me. And then my niece Kelsey.
That's me.
We connected doing this. I think I said to her, would you like to go to Paracon with me last year?
Yep.
And ever since, we've been para buddies.
Yep.
We love it.
Yeah, para buddies.
Woo!
It's like a superpower.
It is.
So what did you think of Paracon?
Love Paracon.
Love it.
You did some of the tours, right?
Yes. We did twice.
Wait, before we go into that, let's talk to Kelsey.
Okay.
Then we'll Paracon it out.
Well, do you want to know our background, what we did? So I'm a medical assistant, so I kind of work in the medical field, so I feel like that definitely empowers me into especially when we're in when I went to Paracon, we did the infirmary this time, and I felt so different being in the infirmary because I get that part of being on the front lines, especially COVID and everything happening, being sick and knowing what's going on, that definitely puts me in more of an empath situation, especially when we're in Penhurst, places where people were sick.
Yeah. Well, in Destination Fear, didn't Chelsea bring them into a hospital? Because she was like...
And I actually asked her a question when I went.
Did you?
Yeah, that I asked her if that makes her feel more like when she goes to hospitals, like, because she's a
ophthalmologist or optometrist.
Yeah. And I asked her, I was like, does that make you feel like you're more, like, empathetic to what happened to those people in those places? And I remember her saying, she was like, yes, like, I feel like I'm drawn to those places more because I want to feel what those people feel. So I definitely feel like that's one of my reasons I like to do this. But I also had a really crazy experience as a kid that made me super interested in this. Yeah. And I can tell you the story if you want to know.
Yeah.
So we had a house in the Poconos, like my whole entire life.
I love the Poconos.
It's right outside of Jim Thorpe.
I love Jim Thorpe.
We just sold it like 2 years ago, but it's been since my dad was born.
Yeah.
It was actually a church where the nuns used to live. That was the house that I grew, like that's my mountain house. The church burned down. They just turned the house into like a regular residential home, and they just built homes around it.
Okay.
So the house definitely has energy. It always did.
Yeah.
I had a couple friends with me, and they had like a second floor with 2 rooms we barely ever used, but they were 4 guests. And we were up there just kind of like looking through, and all of a sudden there was this old like radio, and you could tell it was from probably the 60s. My friend was playing around with it and wasn't catching any radio stations because we're in the middle of Jim Thorpe. She's playing around with it. All of a sudden it catches a radio station. But it was like an old time.
Do you want to tell people why you don't get radio stations in Jim Thorpe?
Because it's in the middle of nowhere, literally. In the middle of nowhere.
And surrounded by mountains.
And it's surrounded by mountains. So, and we're on the top. Like, we're right on the tip of, like, we're Bear Creek Lakes, Jim Thorpe. Like, you do not, like, my radio goes out halfway up the mountain. Like, there is no radio stations. So it caught a radio station, but it was an old time, like, you could tell it was like early 30s music, which was kind of crazy. Like, it was very like old time. Like, it sounded like it was like a Victrola kind of like music.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I like flipped around and I was like, what is going on? She's like, I don't know. She took her hands right off of it, and she was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, you told me this doesn't catch radio stations. I was like, no, it hasn't worked in forever. All of a sudden the door closes. Like, when I'm full size, like, and I literally remember freaking out and, like, running down the stairs and just going to get my dad.
How old were you?
I was probably 14. Mm-hmm. And I grabbed my dad. I was like, Dad, come look. They got the radio station to work. We come back up. It's just static.
Yeah.
Nothing.
And we were like, okay, all right. Like, maybe it was, like, one of the nuns that, like, didn't ever leave. But I always felt like somebody was there in that house. That somebody was always kind of watching me all the time. Like, I never wanted to be in that house by myself. And ever since then, I've been, like, fascinated with the paranormal.
Isn't that weird? I know that I've always felt like I was being watched, like, my whole life. Mm-hmm. Isn't that weird? Have you ever felt that way?
I have. Definitely.
Yeah.
Not really.
No?
No, I haven't really.
It's not really. But I don't think that's weird. You know, I think...
know. Yeah.
It's not. I think...
Maybe it's an ADHD thing.
Maybe so. Maybe it's a neurodivergent, definitely.
I don't know, because I definitely,
Or
like...
maybe you are being watched.
That is true.
So they're like,
I mean, you know.
my spirit guides are working overtime on you.
My FBI agent is watching me.
You ever heard of that? That's funny.
I think they think I'm too boring, you know. Let's go get somebody interesting.
I'm just playing my puzzle on my iPad. That's
Nothing happening here.
They turn that channel off, go to the next one.
They're like, what is this girl doing right now? That's me bouncing off the walls or something.
Yeah, so that's what brought me into the paranormal world. And then my Aunt Col said, you want to go to Paracon? And ever since I've been like invested in it.
The rest is history.
That is true.
Yeah. So, but Colleen, you had no paranormal experiences other than the numbers showing up.
Nothing stands out. I mean, I do recall, maybe I did, and I kind of blocked it. My dad passed away, 23 years ago, and in our shore house, I know lights would, every once in a while, I would ask my dad, and a light did go off one time, and I swore it was my dad because he loved that shore house. And then I have smelled Old Spice, where my dad wore it, but not, I mean, I would maybe one or two.
Scent, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my dad would be the only one I would go to. that I would say that I may have, like, he was watching over me. But as I will say, in the last 5 years now that I've opened up, I'm definitely getting more. Like, I do get physical reactions, I get chills when we go somewhere. I get the dizziness, the heaviness in my chest in certain places, especially in Penhurst.
We got the first time, me and her, it was just me and her on the 3rd floor of Mayflower. We were walking through, and all of a sudden, I looked at her and I said, I feel like I'm going to throw up. Like, I feel nauseous. Like, I looked, and she goes, I just don't feel right. You kept having, like, you're like, my hair, the hair on my arms were standing up kind of thing. And I was like, this is just not it. And we just kept feeling like we were going to, like nauseous.
Yeah.
And the second we walked down those stairs, we were fine.
Yeah. So, you haven't gotten to Matt's episode? Matt from Diamond State Ghost Investigators.
Oh, okay.
He has a whole thing for the 3rd floor of the Mayflower building. He said there are things, the entity that resides up on the 3rd floor is so powerful, it almost kind of like is like, oh my God, I can't believe something like that could be this strong, because it had moved a desk, heavy oak desk from the wall, and he was like, I couldn't even move it like full force, and how did this thing just move it, and on demand. So there's something very strong up there, and that's probably what you were feeling. Is I think when we get those body vibes, I think it's that's our fight, flight, freeze. That's our natural reaction, is telling us that there's something that we don't understand around us. I don't think it necessarily means that it's negative. Like if you're in the woods, you can tell, you can feel it if there's like a bear somewhere. Like you know that there's something out there that's giving you the heebie-jeebies. You know something's there. I think that's probably what that was.
Wow.
Because that one is strong.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go back. So that's what that is on the 3rd floor. And so you were only up there for a minute?
I want to say 9-10 minutes, not even.
It was the open tour where when we got there, you could just walk wherever you wanted. And actually both years. It happened to us last year and this year. And I had never felt anything like that before. But we had walked back, and I'm like, I don't feel right. I feel dizzy, and I got this real tightness in my chest, and I'm like, that's really weird. And I just kept paying attention to it, and we talked.
Yeah.
And the second, when I stepped out of that room into the hallway, it just disappeared. And it fascinated me, because I'd never had a physical reaction like that before.
Yeah.
And now, that the second time, this past time we went right away, I mean, I'm way more open than I ever was.
Right.
So I feel a lot more now.
It's that guy that's up there.
So one of the things that they say, that's a personal experience, and there's no documentation. There's nothing you can,
Heart rate. You can get a heart rate monitor.
You can, but that doesn't mean anything. When you talk, for example, Daryl was talking about really having, when they go to the manor, for example, they have a lot of personal experiences. They have a lot of meters that go off, but scientifically, that's nothing. They can't say that was something just because you had and your brain does play little games on you, so that's not always the case. But these are the type of experiences that we're interested in hearing about, because I believe they absolutely are valid. You may have something that you think, well, I don't know whether I feel something or not. But when you feel something. When something happens. When something flies into your brain that you had
I've been working on the railroad, right. The two of you.
Right.
That was crazy.
That was crazy. Yeah. And the fact that we both had it at the same time, and we were sitting next to each other. So something caused that. It's disappointing because we can't say scientifically that happened, but it was a definite personal experience that happened, and it's very valid. And those are the things that people need to recognize when they have that. Don't discount it.
Right.
Say that this is what's going on, and write it down or record it and tell somebody, because they may. If I hadn't said something about the song, you probably wouldn't have said anything
and
either.
you were telling me, and you overheard
And
that.
I was walking ahead because you guys were making fun of me because I had the Paul Revere light, and I'm walking ahead, and I flipped around, and I said, and I started singing it. Remember, I was like, and I was like, I was working on it, and you were like, what? And I was like,
Just said that.
Yeah, yes, so that is something that is, it's experiences that you can't explain, they're not scientific, but they happen. And people are afraid to say something, or
Yes.
they're afraid of the experience.
Right.
But they validate that.
Yes.
Like for me, for you to say you felt the same thing I did, or Kelsey,
Right,
and I'm like, okay,
exactly.
then it's not me thinking, like, it
Yes.
really did happen to me.
But
And it gives you the validation, and you can trust in your instinct. You can trust in these
Exactly.
feelings.
And that's where I think that we tried from history, trying to tell us, oh, it's all in your brain, or people have experiences in their home and they try to write it off as something else happening. And they're afraid to say anything, or they're a little bit shy that people are going to think they're crazy if they say something.
Right.
That's what we're trying to dispel
Yeah.
in having these podcasts, because people have experiences all the time that they don't talk about,
Right.
or they're afraid to talk about.
You could have one anytime, any space.
So thanks for sharing that, because that's really good, and we'll get to the railroad.
yeah, we will. We'll talk about that.
But you could be driving and you say, okay, I'm going to turn this place instead of that place. And that might have just saved you from an accident.
Yeah.
I just made the mistake of turning in the wrong spot.
Well,
You never know.
did I tell you guys about the bridge collapsing? Did you guys know that in Baltimore, whatever, in Maryland?
Yeah.
I was driving home from Maryland, from South Carolina, or the same day that collapsed. I drove over that bridge
Just before
before it collapsed, and then I'm sleeping at
Wow.
home. I apparently sleepwalked in the middle of the night, and my aunt came out and she goes, "Why are you crying in the hallway?" I was sobbing because I sleepwalk often. She knows. Everybody
Okay.
knows. I sleep.
it's hereditary.
It's
in our
hereditary.
family.
I
Really?
was sobbing in the hallway saying something bad is going to happen. And she looked at the time. She said it was 1:00 in the morning, and it was when the bridge collapsed. I
Oh,
just
wow.
drove over that bridge.
Wow.
And I swear that something was telling me, like, you just were right there, and that almost happened. You could have been on that bridge if you left 3 hours later. Like,
That was an imprint. Yeah, I got chills on that one.
Reminds me of the Mothman prophecy.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
and I've always said that I have that weird gut feeling. I've always had that.
Yeah.
That
Not
gut.
weird.
No.
I call it weird because I randomly I'll be like, something's not going to happen, and then it happens, and I'm like,
Listen.
Raven Simone.
Lean into the
I
weird.
try.
Embrace your weirdness.
I own it. I do.
As do I. There's a T-shirt out there. I'm a teacher, and I want to get it, and it says "Weird teachers build character." That
Yes.
is me.
True.
I own it.
Absolutely.
Gotta push the boundaries. on
Okay, Miss
some
Frizzle.
We need a magic school bus.
Yes, I do.
Oh my god, that would be
Spooky bus.
awesome. Spooky bus.
I love it.
Yeah, let's do it. Anyway,
We digress. We were.
gonna make a spin-off about digressing. Just kidding.
No, we were going to go then lead into. We talked about Pennhurst,
Yeah.
and then we were leading into Fort Mifflin.
Yes.
Where we all met.
Yeah, when we all officially met.
Although we were all at Pennhurst.
Paracon. How long ago was it? 3 weeks before?
Yeah.
May, it was like 18th, 19th, something like that. About 3 weeks.
Yeah. And then we were all there. And then when we went, okay, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. No, when we did in the Commandant's house, when we got that spirit box thing, when I was like, Pennhurst Paracon.
Yes.
That was weird.
That was crazy.
That was weird.
That right, because you did have that.
Yeah.
Well, because
Yeah,
April and
that's
Ron had their Paracon
T-shirts
on.
Yeah.
That's true. So when we went to Fort Mifflin, we were delayed from our
Yes.
March trip to June. We got there. We all connected along with Ron and April, and
Because of T-shirts.
because of T-shirts. A lot.
Thank you, Jim
A
Harold.
lot. We actually knew somebody else that was there, and they sort of like, yeah, we've got our own group.
Yeah.
Because we recognized them, and they were sort of,
They
that
had
was
their
good
own group,
for
which
us.
is good for us.
Because then that led us into
Yeah.
to meeting you guys and having a different experience than we would have had with them.
Yes,
I'm sure.
I'm 100% sure that might have. They did not look like they had a good time.
No.
No, when one of them walked past me, she was just like, like she looked like she was
Like
not having a good
not a good
Bad
Yeah.
vibes.
Yeah.
There was something up.
So we got to Fort Mifflin. We found our
Groups.
little crew.
Our boo crew.
Greg gave his overview and then just sort of turned us loose.
Well, when we went in before he gave the overview, we could walk around in the daylight and see everything and kind of get our feel, like the footing of the place. So we went in a little couple places, and you'll see that when I post up the photos and videos.
Before
Yeah.
we started the investigation, because we
Actual
wanted
investigation.
to see where we wanted to go first. And it's not got another group. There were what, 5, 6 groups?
I feel like there were more
More
than
than
that.
There were probably about 50 people there, I would say.
Yeah.
So maybe 10 groups? No,
Well,
less than
because
that.
there were 2 guys. Remember, there were 2 guys that came in a couple of times after
Yeah.
us, and there was
Yeah.
another
Mhm.
guy that came walk by.
There were
There
the
was a
peaches.
big group. Yeah, the peaches were there.
But it was big enough that everybody was spread out,
yes.
so we could actually go
Yes.
into buildings and have privacy.
private.
Private
Yeah.
time, which was really good
Mhm.
because we weren't shuffled around in groups saying you've got 20 minutes here,
Mhm.
you've got
Yes.
20 minutes here. There were no time limits.
And I think that's why when we go to my haunted manor, because we're doing the private session, we can do whatever we want, and they're not going to switch us like when we went. They were switching us,
Okay.
and they were like, okay, now this group is going here, this group is going there. It's just whatever we're going to want to do.
And we were lucky there too that we had a good
Yes,
group.
we did a good
We
group.
did
We
a
met
good
people
group.
right off the bat.
So
So,
it worked out well, but that was nice. They did not tell us too much about it.
Mm-hmm.
I had read a little bit about the history, which when we interviewed Greg, which is coming out on
Yeah.
Tuesday, he
We
goes
had a
into
whole
more
lot
detail
more.
about the history and
Yeah.
who the entities are that are there.
right, and because he did say, there was like a little, when we were in the beginning, he did say this part was built by the English,
Right.
and this part was built by the French. So later on, we got some French in the spirit box.
But some of it was newly built because
Yeah.
it was all
It
destroyed.
was destroyed
So
completely.
there was there's a lot of history to that. But there were also many more groups of people than I had expected.
Yeah.
Because it was the Revolutionary War and the Civil War.
Yes.
But there was a lot going on in between, too.
And up until now.
What I found fascinating was that it also was, remember he said like the people that were going against Lincoln
Yes.
were like jailed there, so it
Yes.
could have been like any like religious people that were like talking against Lincoln and during the Civil War. I found that fascinating because like anybody that said anything bad was just thrown into jail there, and that's like crazy because that probably makes those spirits probably angry that they were just like
Absolutely.
thrown into jail because they had an opinion.
Yeah.
So, like, I didn't even know that. And I went as a child going to Fort Mifflin, and obviously they didn't tell children this. You were really
Yeah.
there for, like, the Civil War aspect. But, like, going as an adult from when I was a child, like, that is crazy to find out. Because I only live, like, 5 minutes down the street. So, like, Fort Mifflin, you went, like, once a year in elementary school. Like, it was not my first time there. But as an adult, it was. But that was cool.
But
Yeah.
the other thing also that you don't really know in detail about the diseases that were there and the number of people that had
Was it dysentery, yellow
cholera,
fever?
yeah.
Tuberculosis, I
Yeah.
think he said.
So there were a lot of different diseases, but also the fort was rebuilt by different groups of people.
Yeah.
And that's where you have, the languages that we can talk about later
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that made sense to us then after he talked about that.
After, like, putting
Why we got some of this stuff that we did.
And that's why I don't like knowing about stuff, because why would I have ever thought that there would be German Guten Tagen right in my mouth, in my ears?
Or even French.
Or yes, I would never have
So-
expected
and
that.
There's
so.
reasons why they were there.
So the validation that we got
Yes.
last week was awesome.
Yeah. So
Okay, so we went.
we went to the commandant's home
That was our first.
or the commander's home.
Commandant.
Depends on what the era was. So
Yeah.
He said they were commandants or the commander, depending on.
If it was naval or not.
or Army.
Kind of what year?
What century?
We'll just say commandant, because that's
But commandant's home is,
And so when we have that, we went there first and it was still daylight because it was just 8:00 and the sun hadn't set. So we could see inside and so we'll kind of describe it. You go up these little entrance stairs and there's no doors. So you don't have doors that shut, so you do see light leak in. And then there's this platform because it is a gutted out house. There's no second floor anymore, but there
there's
used to
open
be.
rafters.
But there's open rafters, and there's two big, huge fireplaces. Did it have 2 or 3 fire entrance?
They
like,
had
the little
2,
fireplaces?
but it looks like one in the back was
In
like
the
falling
back.
apart. Like it
Okay.
was like you couldn't really tell, but you could tell it was at one point a fireplace.
Yeah, it was really interesting, but that
So
was on
we
either
learned-
side.
We learned from Greg that
Yes.
that would have housed servants on the second floor, and then the commandant and his
And then
family.
his second in command.
And a
was
second committee. So there were a couple families that would have lived
Yeah,
on the first floor, but in very tight space.
because that's not that big.
No, it was not.
So, what happened there? What did you guys feel?
For me, I remember pulling out the SLS on the ghost tube, I think it was, and as Ron and April were using,
Flashlights and
yeah,
and a REM pod and a music box.
And she also had the
but the voice, what was the voice from?
It was
that-
Spirit Talker.
Yes. So they were, as the spirit talker, very active there.
Yes.
But there was a person just kept hanging out by that one fireplace when you walk in, the one to the right.
Mhm.
And Ron saw it and just was there the whole time.
So
I
you saw someone.
was
and then
focused on that
particular-
with my phone and the SLS, and it fascinated me because even when someone else came over, it was like, yep, right there. Like they were sitting right on the little step up to the fireplace.
Yeah.
And then...
Ooh, like
yeah.
they were like warming themselves by the fire.
Yes, it was almost like sitting right there on the little step.
That's neat. That's super cool.
And at one point, I thought, as I was trying to scan it, and I was trying to get April as she was talking, but it looked like there was some sort of, I don't want to say an orb.
So just for clarification, the SLS will show an outline of an
Stick
activity,
figures.
like the stick
Yes,
figure.
yes,
So-
mapping in someone other than us.
And when you look at an SLS, you have to make sure that it's not picking up the outline of the fireplace versus somebody sitting on. And it's very clear when that happens. You can tell a big difference in the shape of the stick figure. Because I saw it too, and I moved it, you could see the stick figure, but I saw it on the other fireplace.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny because when I do that in my house, my son has a big Thomas the train track set, and for some reason my SLS goes and makes it look like it's like a kid like sitting over. And I'm like, you just don't know what to do with that.
train track. Yeah.
So like that's not an actual ghost. So it can pick up things that it's tricking it into thinking it's a person, but you don't think that was the case.
No, if you angle it correctly, like it'll pick up the brick or the fireplace, but then if you angle it, you can see the outline of a person. It's very distinctive versus
Right.
just vertical line.
And we could not go in that spot. So remember, it was blocked off. We had the wood there, so we weren't allowed. So it was definitely not mapping in one of us.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
You know, so, and it didn't look like it was, like you said, the bricks or what yeah. I mean, again, you do have to go in skeptically.
Yes.
You cannot say, oh, everything I see must be written, this must, no.
Right.
You have to definitely figure, okay, what else could it be?
Debunk.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
we did debunk a couple things.
Yeah.
Remember? Because I mean, we're gonna get to it, but we did then go to the other spot, and you were trying to debunk that because we were doing in the doorway.
Yeah.
And we were trying to
That's the doorway.
debunk that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like that gives you that peace of mind when you do try to debunk something that, like, okay, I did see that, or
Yeah.
that happened to me.
Yeah.
Because, like, your first thing is I'm very technical as well, so I try to like always debunk something the first time. I'm like, okay, where's that? What happened? How can I try to repeat it?
Right.
If it could happen again.
Right.
So we stayed there for a little while, but we didn't spend a lot of time.
Oh, there though. Remember when I had the spirit box out or something? I had on my phone, and then it growled or like made that screaming sound.
Oh, it did make a weird sound.
Oh
That's
my
what that
gosh,
was.
that was wild. And that guy came in and he was like, I heard that. And I was like, yeah.
That was creepy.
I did not like that. I was like, but that was on the left side. And I kept feeling like something was over there. Like I just got that vibe. Like it was just out of our reach.
Which is where, when we went back the second time, you were drawn there. Because I was doing the Estes, so I missed all that the second time we went back. Because I was sitting there and you got the shadow figure and all that activity.
So,
Yeah.
according to Greg, on that second time, and again, that was the end when we went back.
Yeah, and we'll
After
talk more
dawn.
about that when we
We'll
get
talk-
there. Yeah.
Yeah, because right now we just kind of left there. We did have that experience when we came back, but that
He
was
validates that one
pretty
too.
much. But that, you also heard French there? Was that French?
Yes.
You were doing the French.
A little bit, yes.
I think I heard it too, and I was like, I like gave it to you, right?
You were the first to hear it.
And I was like, I think this is French. It's very weird.
Because
Like,
you kept saying, you're like, I don't speak French.
yeah.
Does anybody speak French? Because
And I was like, je ne parle français. I don't speak this. So then I gave it to you, because that was weird. Oh, and when we sat down, right off the bat, it was Penhurst, and then it said Paracon. I was like, why is this on the radio? Like, they would not be, if it was a leak through on the radio station from the spirit box, they wouldn't be saying that. But it knew that we had all done Penhurst Paragon together.
And April and Rom are both wearing the shirts that said Paracon. So, like, obviously, like, the spirit saw that, read it, and was like, okay, I'm going to tell them that I see
validate
them.
that, yeah.
And we had that discussion when we had just met
Yes.
before it started. That we're like, oh wait, we were at Paracon too.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, listening in.
You're
It's-
right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's very
Because we did not say that
Intelligent.
in that building.
No,
it
we
was
did not.
way before that.
yeah.
So the other thing is about the French that we found out from Greg.
Yes.
That they were, the architect of
Yes.
the fort was French.
Yeah.
And also some of the workers were
Workers.
French.
So he hired the Frenchman to build
To do
the architect and
some
build it.
work. So
a lot of that was built by them.
When you hear his interview, you'll hear the more details about the
Yeah.
nationalities of people, but then it makes sense. Okay, you heard French. There, specifically there.
And we got Rosemary there.
And we got Rosemary, although he could not say who Rosemary was.
He has 2 books full of prisoners that were there.
Names.
A bunch of names. And then he had other things like they had a lot of drownings. So there are shipwrecks, contemporary drownings, things like that. So Rosemary could be somebody, a wife of
That
somebody.
they would not have record of.
Right. Or we could look into it. But since that came up so many times, like, that's of note.
We were getting Rose and Rosemary, like, probably like 10 or 10 times almost.
Yeah. And on different things.
Because I kept getting it on the Estes, and then I think somebody
also
else
did.
got it on the Estes, and then we also got it on the Spirit Talker or whatever
Yeah.
that Ron and April were going. So, I mean, that's 3 separate times on 3 separate things
Yes.
we were getting Rosemary.
Exactly.
And it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Also, there was some noise, like walking on the second floor, even though there's
Footsteps.
no
Yes.
second floor.
Yeah.
And that had been reported by other people as well.
Right.
Is that it sounded like someone walking on
But-
the floor upstairs, but there's no
There's no floor.
floor. There's just the rafters.
Yeah.
So that was residual.
Yeah,
as
that's a
well.
residual for sure.
But I think,
we also got
That was
intelligent
one
stuff later on from that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So after that, we kind of went out and went to the Powder magazine. Is that, okay. So the Powder magazine, it says in here, let me read this, was the heavy fog has been seen emanating from the entryway only to disappear moments later. It was here that a group encountered a tour guide who explained the history of the fort. There was no tour on site that day. So that was kind of what other people have had experiences, but we didn't really have much experience in the Powder magazine, right?
Except for all the spirit boxes.
The spirit box in French and German. And we found out later there was Hessians
Yes.
that were there, and they were German. And spoke German.
And so
and stole the French. So
we had double Estes. So April was on one side and I was on the other side. And then
I picked
took
it up.
over after that. So, because I was like, I can't speak German. I know a
but
little bit.
there was a lot coming through.
A lot of it. But when I'm under, like, she couldn't hear me and I couldn't hear her. So when I was like, what is this German? You guys were like, she's getting it too. And I'm like, okay, all right. Because I definitely 100% heard Guten Tag. And I was like, okay, that's definitely German. And then there was other stuff. But I was like, I would be telling you more, but I can't tell you because I don't know how to say these words. And then, so that place has a little bit of water at the end of the tunnel, but it wasn't like, it was damp, but it wasn't that bad.
Like a puddle.
Yeah. No, we had, what else? But that was SLS too.
And then Ron felt something on his arm. He kept feeling like he was being like grazed.
And that's where you mapped
where I
it.
had the
And you
SLS.
Yeah.
So he was standing with his back to the entryway, and I was in front of him, and I had the SLS on my camera, and he was standing saying that he felt something touching his left arm, and I could see the stick figure right next to him reaching that way. The arms would reach that way, and it was very, I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah.
But he was saying, it kind of mapped out what he was saying, where he felt he was being touched. And it kept doing it. And he would say, oh, there it is again.
And I wish we had that on video.
I do too.
We have some of it. I have some of it recorded like over the shoulder, but
It wasn't really,
I'll go back and double check mine too. I
See
don't
if you had
recall. Yeah, I'll see
anything.
if I was able to catch anything.
because I
'Cause
know
you
we
were getting
recorded some of it. but-
people.
Yeah, I was mapping very similar to what you were saying. Yeah, I was kind of listening in that room, just taking it all in, and I did a lot of video. So there
Okay, good.
may be some proof of what you were. Because I
What
feel
I
like
was
at one
saying.
point I may have gone behind to.
I was thinking.
I feel like I did, so I
Yeah,
will
I
double
did
check the
too.
video. I think I
Yeah.
might have it.
Just
Because I know she was recording you because I told her to, and then I was
Yeah.
like, "Here, you do this. I gotta go. I gotta go get in deep."
I'm gonna go investigate.
So Greg said that people are very drawn to that back wall. So how we were doing our Estes method, like that's where they're drawn to. People go there all the time.
One of the things that Ron had and April had flashlights
Yes.
that they
Yes.
put places, and there were a couple instances when they turned off. He'd ask them turn it on or turn it off, but mostly it went brighter and dimmer. So
Like they
I
weren't
don't
turning
know.
all the way off.
And like,
It was weird.
right, and you would think, well, is that a malfunction in the camera? I mean, the flashlight, or is it really the entity touching it, trying to turn it off and not being able to quite turn it off?
Right.
He did go back and reset the flashlights a couple of times
Yeah.
to make sure, and he almost to debunk could there be something going on
Yeah.
with the flashlight.
Well-
So I feel like he was trying to make sure, okay, let me shut it down again completely,
Redo it.
because he said it wasn't something easy where you could, you did have to maneuver it. So maybe it was easier to dim it or make it brighter while it was already on. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd have to do a little more, like a deep dive on flashlights and
Who
such.
watched Project Fear's most recent video that just came out?
I have not.
So Dakota actually, they did a hotel episode with they all were in different hotel rooms, and Dakota had so much activity in his, which is funny because the room he was in was Rosemary's room, which
Oh,
is
weird.
scary. I know. And he did the flashlight method, and he was like doing yes and no, and he was getting so much activity, but his flashlight was different than what Ron had.
Right.
But I do remember Ron saying, he's like, I don't totally believe in this flashlight. I just want to try it. That's why he kept resetting it, because he's like, I don't know, and we were trying to debunk it.
But I've heard other people say that they really do rely on, and a lot of times to do it, do 2 flashlights.
Yeah.
Instead of just 1. So I wish I had known that then. I would have asked him to do the 2 flashlight to see if they were kind
And
of in
did they
sync
do
or not.
yes and no?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you can do that.
Well, and I did just purchase, after he did that, I purchased 2 of them for the Haunted Manor, so we can maybe play around
That would
with
be interesting.
that, and we would have,
We can do like 2 different brands of flashlights too, so we know it's not just that
Yeah.
flashlight or something. Maybe
Yeah. And I bet you they have flashlights, because I know in the kids' room there they do flashlight work.
Yes, we've
a
seen the
lot.
flashlights there.
So, what I would be interested in, because was it Trey talking about the different colors, or was it Matt?
Yes. No.
Was it Trey?
Oh, I think it was Trey.
They talk about getting different colors.
Right.
So, like, you have a red, a purple, and a green one, and so they'll like,
Oh, interesting.
can you touch the purple one? Can you touch the green one?
Because we had, my question is, how do the entities know what color is there? Are they seeing color, or is everything in black and white?
I feel like I feel like they know stuff.
I think you're right,
Yeah.
and I know that I've seen shows and I've read things where they say, however you were in life, that's the way you are in death. So if you were this very generous person, so I feel like, yes, you would maybe bring over what you know, and yeah, you would be able to distinguish, if that is true. I mean, I don't know, I've just heard a lot of different people say.
We will never know until we
They-
die. Yeah.
Unless you get that one colorblind ghost.
Yeah, but maybe they're tapped into the other side, you know, like they're
Somebody
like,
else is telling him.
Hey, buddy, that one's purple.
that one.
Primary color.
So we should maybe find like plastic, like to put like a filter on it. That'd be kind of fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's do that.
Research.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we're going we keep going to My Haunted Manor. I saw it again.
Oh,
I just saw like a flicker.
the light just came on up there. That light was not on.
Was it?
No, all the lights were off.
Oh.
For those of you wondering, we are recording. Yes, Emily was. She keeps seeing a foot walking down the steps
I've seen
in
it
the office.
multiple
building,
times in
right.
this building, going down the stairs. Now Kelsey's going to check it out. See, I didn't know. I thought those lights stay on all the time. Yeah, go ahead.
No, actually, they're not supposed to stay on all the time, but every time we've been here, they've been on.
And
And
they-
after we leave,
And they
stay
still on. Yeah, it's
So I
really
don't know.
bizarre.
Because I come in, when I come in the morning,
Uh-huh.
if no one has been here, it's dark upstairs, and they come on when I get to the top of the stairs. It doesn't come on until I actually get
Up the stairs.
It just went on when I went up the stairs. Big delay.
Bizarre. Huh.
So I don't know why
Yeah.
it would have been on if no one was up there, because they're motion
Somebody's
censored.
here.
Motion censored lights.
Oh, that's another thing I'd like to get. I have like this Amazon wish list, and I'd like to get the motion sensor lights, you know, like that you put and you walk by and it's like a night light. I'd like to get a bunch and just light them up and see if that works.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah. Cat balls, people use cat balls. Like investigators, like the serious investigators, they don't use cat balls. But I think that it is just another piece of something. So if you're having a cat ball going and you're having spirit box happening and your REM pod goes off, I feel like that's a good, but if it's just a cat ball, like don't necessarily trust it. So that's what I'm saying. What?
Nothing, but you have to physically touch it.
Yeah, you have to
go
move
off.
it.
So it's not like it just doesn't
Right. And that,
happen without something happening.
right. And like with the one in the Bellevue, you know, we tried to debunk it. Like it went off. Nobody was touching it. And we like slammed our hands into the wall. It was on this ledge.
Near it by.
Yeah, and only one went off and the other one didn't. So it was really strange.
So whatever caused the one to go off didn't cause the other to go off. And no one was there. No one was touching the shelf.
And if you slam,
and even if you get nearby, it's
the
still
other
doesn't-
one would go off.
Yeah.
Like the last really hard slam I did in the wall, the other one went off. Not even the one that was going off.
So we're digressing again.
Anyway, digressing. But Capels, it's just another fun form.
Yeah, it is, and I don't know, is that more reliable than a music box? Because music box, again, that's a touch. The dog that...
Well, the music box is motion sensor.
It's the what was the REM pod?
REM pod
is where they have to go in like the
that's the antenna.
Yeah.
Which also
the electromagnetic.
So the music
magnetic. She said.
And it also does bariatric pressure and motion. Like if it jiggles, it'll go off.
Also it does temperature.
Temperature too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Until the most recent Project Fear episode when it kept going off and it was freaking me out. I was like, that is crazy.
Yeah.
It's the temperature.
So the music box is motion.
Yes. If you break the thing.
plane.
Yeah.
It's like a laser, and if you
Flashlights are not. You have to physically touch a
it.
flashlight.
Yeah. You
REM
have to
pods,
twist
REM
it.
pods are motion sensors.
There's four
And
different things, but
the
the
heat
antenna.
Is the one that
Yeah,
catches
that thing that sticks up. Then you have to it gets if you're right there, touching it to touch it.
sorry.
I know. I'm sorry, guys. You can't see what I'm doing, and that looked really
you didn't
weird.
want to see that one.
You have to be so close to, with your hand around it.
I was wondering what you were going for that, but
It's fine.
you realize she has to listen to all this 2 or 3 times to edit.
Edit, yeah. Okay, next up.
So next was the Sally Port.
Thank you for listening. If you have a story you'd like to tell us, please email us at onlyghostsinthebuilding@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram at onlyghostsinthebuilding or Facebook at onlyghostsinthebuilding. We also have a Patreon at patreon.com/onlyghostsinthebuilding, and you can come join for free, or we have a $1 a month tier or a $5 a month tier. Come check us out. We have a lot of good content there. I really enjoy the app and all its capabilities. You can listen, you can watch, and you can read and check out all our content right on there. We have merch for sale at onlyghostinthebuilding.com. There's some really cute stuff, including kids' clothes. Go check that out. Thank you so much. We will see you soon.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.